All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about drumming and the mystical, magical formula for what I believe over the years I've discovered is a way to find amazing grooves, a way to feel comfortable and at one with your playing and with your connection with the drums themselves. Peter Erskine once said, I believe, and I'm not exactly sure about this, but I'm pretty sure it was Peter Erskine that penned the idea of poetry in motion. Now, I've never been a big poetry fan, but I do believe that there's a lot to be said for the connection between other arts and movement in the arts and drumming. After all, Buddy Rich, Steve Gadd, people like that, and I'd include myself, had some tap dance experience. Uh, Theirs much more than mine, but I did get enough of that to understand the connection between how my body moved and how it touched the ground, and how it was able to create something artistic in the movement itself and in the sound. So I think subconsciously tried to apply that over the years, and how and what I've done with drumming. And it quite simply is this: when you take your drumsticks and you have this fluid motion and the texture between the tip of the drumstick hitting the drum head and rebounding off or pulling that off. And that's a learned habit. That's something that you, over repetition and over days of practicing and years of playing, you begin to understand that that connection with that contact and the way that you pull away from that or it rebounds away from that, depending on the sound and the actual feel itself, creates this mystical sound. So you take that concept and you, of course, through time and repetition, you begin to practice these things and they become part of who you are. And it will liberate you to be more expressive as a drummer, but it also enables you to be able to discover, what is it when people say, what's your sound or what's your thing? Well, I think you have to get there first before you can discover that. I don't think you can just sit down and start bashing around the drums and over time unlock that unless it just happens by accident, I suppose. In some people it can. But I think if you think about that, not try to overthink it, but think about that, and then you mix in a couple of things. One, I would say, what separates me, for example, from these fantastically amazing, popular, wonderful musicians, drummers. And I would say that the one thing, if I were to name one thing, it would be the time spent on the instrument, uh, practicing and going through these motions. Now, the second part of that is, what do you practice and how do you practice? Well, obviously, for most of you, and I will say for myself, I am glad that I had orchestral training early on because that helped me understand the concept of touch on the field, dynamics, control, power, and sensitivity, and everything in between that, and learning how to read music so that you could take that roadmap, if you will, and then play something in line with that roadmap that starts to make sense. So that is a good beginning. And then all of your rudimental pieces that you need to practice, spend hours and hours, lots of repetition with or without a metronome. But don't frustrate yourself with the metronome. The metronome will come. You can apply the metronome, I think, easier once you have some of these initial concepts under your hands and fingers. So there's a lot that can be unpacked around drumming and the methods that you might use and the approach that you might take. But it boils down to the finesse and feel that you have with your sticks and with the drums themselves, how that feels. And then you take that and then you just start to play linear movement and things on the drums, which is what I try to do every day. I will play and practice a good jazz bebop feel on the ride cymbal and play around with that. I'll do some funk and pop and bop and different style of Latin kinds of things, basic feels, basic feelings. But the primary thing I ask myself is, does that feel good to me? If I were tap dancing that, would that feel good to me? Because when I try to overcomplicate things or overplay things, I not only lose control and lose my focus, but I lose that feel. And Jeff Porcaro, I think, once said about Rick Marotta, you dig a deep ditch. And I love that idea. What a wonderful thing to say, which means basically he had such a deep pocket because he didn't try to overplay. He just understood the way that that felt to him through all of this motion and sensitivity and touch and dynamics. How did that simple drum fill or drum beat feel to those that were listening? And Jeff Porcaro, who's a fantastic drummer, who was a recording legend, felt something when Rick played that. So I think that validates this point very much, and I hope that this will make some sense to you. The drumming's not complicated. It's like athletics or anything else in life. The more that you understand the basics, the concepts, you practice some of those fundamentals to understand them, and then you apply them over repetition, time and time again. Again, what separates the great players from the good players to the mediocre players to the beginners is simply time and willingness to understand the connection between the instrument, which is amazing, and you. Because inside you, you've got all of that. After all, when you listen to music, when you listen to a great drummer, like when I listen to Steve Gadd or Dave Weckl or Peter Erskine, for example, or Vinnie Colaiuta, when I watch them play, I almost put myself inside them and hear it as if I were playing that. I literally think, what if that were me doing this? And it helps me understand the concepts easier. And instead of focusing on, well, how did he do that? It's like, how did he make that sound so beautiful? Because in the context of that drumming to the music itself, it's magic. It's wonderful. It's something that for those of you that have chosen to play drums, for those of you that practice that and want to do that, whether that's for a living or just to have fun, once you connect with some of these basic concepts that I've explained today, I think you'll enjoy it a whole lot more. Anyway, have a great day. Thank you.